What's up YouTube, DMLX here, and welcome back to another episode of Rate the Fighter, where we break down and rank combatants in our favorite fighting game, or in this case, hero shooters, based on design, moveset, specials, finishers, and skill level. Today we'll be doing a deep dive on Blade from Marvel Rivals. Half human and half vampire, Eric Brooks walks between worlds of the living and unnatural, craving the very life force of his enemies. As night falls, Eric takes up the identity of Blade and hunts his targets, wielding the newly acquired Sword of Dracula to become the nightmare of all unholy creatures who dare to prey upon the innocent. Awakened from his nap during the power of the Phoenix Battle Pass, Blade is classified as a duelist in Rivals with a 3-star difficulty rating. This is potentially due to Blade's unique mix of melee and ranged attacks that will have players constantly switching between the use of the Ancestral Sword and the Hunter's Shotgun depending on how players plan to use Blade to engage the opposition. Blade's appearance in Marvel Rivals was teased way back during the events of the Darkhold Battle Pass and has been a highly anticipated character to join the roster ever since. And spoiler alert, I believe he's worth the wait. But before we move ahead, be sure to hit that like button and share with your friends, I'd really appreciate it. And with that being said, let's see how the legendary Daywalker goes about dispelling the darkness from within the shadows. Blade's base design in Rivals is quite faithful to the modern iterations of the famed Vampire Hunter, donning a black matrix-like attire with drips of blood red around his shades, trench coat, armored vest, and shoes. Sporting cornrows that would make Riley Freeman jealous, a sleeve of tattoos on his right arm, jewelry which includes ear piercings and chains wrapped around his neck and wrist, body armor that holds 4 metal stakes, and a belt buckle with a large glowing vampire-like skull. Blade's signature weapons also complement his aesthetic well, with the Hunter's Shotgun coated with a nice balance of black and red, as well as a twin-bladed bayonet attached for extra style points. Additionally, the Sword of Dracula and the Ancestral Sword are topped off with gold around the hilts to emphasize both mythical Blades' aggressive demonic flair for the theatrics. By and large, Blade's base design in Rivals does the character vampiric justice, with the addition of wielding the Sword of Dracula and the Ancestral Sword increasing Blade's aura by tenfold. However, those knees and shin pads he's rocking seem a bit tacked on and out of place, so I'm going to assign Blade's base design to the A tier. Blade's normal attacks consist of using the Ancestral Sword for slashing targets within striking distance that can string together an endless amount of sword swipes that are enhanced when synchronized with specific Blade abilities, as well as being able to swap to the Hunter's Shotgun, which is most beneficial against targets that are 10 to 20 meters away, seeing that if Blade is too far or too close to the opposition when using the shotgun, the damage of the weapon surprisingly becomes less effective on both ends. All in all, Blade's standard moveset seems fairly balanced compared to most duelists and Rivals, and doesn't require much effort from the player to understand when it's the appropriate time to slash and blast, which has me firmly placing Blade's basic moveset in the C tier. Blade's special abilities provide great opportunities for players to be dependable combatants in game, starting with the Daywalker Dash, which is great for closing in on targets with the Ancestral Sword or Shotgun. It is also good for escaping the opposition if Blade gets overwhelmed, and if wielding the shotgun while performing Daywalker Dash, shooting at enemies upon impact will apply a healing reduction effect, while using the sword will inflict a slow effect. Bloodline Awakening allows Blade to channel the power of the Damper Bloodline and enhance his slash speed during continuous attacks and trigger Whirlwind Slash. However, while under this state, Blade will suffer reduced healing, but will have the benefit of gaining health back with each attack he lands. Also, you can't use the Hunter's Shotgun while Bloodline Awakening is active, otherwise Blade will revert back to his normal state. Lastly, there's Scarlet Shroud, a parry command that has Blade use the Ancestral Sword to become unstoppable for a brief period, reduce the amount of damage taken from the front, and decreases the cooldown of Daywalker Dash. Personally, I find Blade's special abilities satisfying to pull off in game, with the Daywalker Dash providing slick opportunities to move around the arena, deploying Scarlet Shroud when outmatched, or activating Bloodline Awakening to shred up some unfortunate souls trying to skate uphill with style. So knowing this, I feel comfortable placing Blade's special abilities in the B tier. Blade's ultimate ability is called the 1000-fold Slash. Using the Sword of Dracula's full potential, Blade charges up the weapon and unleashes a powerful Blade Strike by dashing forward, leaving behind a slashing zone where the sword automatically damages enemies in its path, and enemies that are hit within the zone suffer reduced healing. This attack is recommended when facing off against multiple enemies, as it is highly effective for shutting down lanes defensively or offensively, all the while picking up a few multi-kills in the process. On top of that, Blade can still attack enemies caught within the 1000-fold Slash to stack up damage that is being delivered, making this ultimate worthy of being placed in the A tier. Now in terms of skill level, I would say Blade's 3-star difficulty rating according to the game's description is fairly accurate. Players that want to master Blade need to have the understanding and patience necessary of how to effectively use his melee and range capabilities to excel in competitive matches. That includes knowing when to chip away at enemies' health from a distance with the Hunter's Shotgun, to finding the right moment to pile on damage when using the 1000-fold Slash. Now, even though Blade is not no one-man army, I do find him to be a heavily reliable duelist for both offensive and defensive play. So at this moment, I'm classifying Blade as a mid-level entry fighter. After averaging results on the fighter tier scale, Blade ends up being a mid-level B tier fighter. And there you have it, that's my breakdown of Blade in Marvel Rivals. Do you agree with my ranking? Drop your thoughts in the comments down below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell if you don't want to miss the next episode of Rate the Fighter. Until then, I'm DMLX, and I'll see you in the future.